Thank you for tuning into Literary Blend, a publishing podcast. I'm your host, Demi Michelle Schwartz. There's no perfect recipe for chasing a dream in the publishing industry, but I hope the conversations on this show give you the ingredients you need to bake yours into reality. So let's flip the page and get into this chapter of Literary Blend. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Literary Blend. Today's chapter is called Creating a Writing Ritual. And joining me on the show to cover this topic is an author I'm beyond excited to have a conversation with. Please welcome Diane Billas. Hi, Diane.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so happy it is now fall. I was so sick of the long, hot summer.
Oh my gosh, me too. It's so crisp outside today.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'm so excited to dive into our chapter of the show, but first, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey as an author so far.
Sure. So, Diane Billas. I live in the Philadelphia area with my husband and my son. My debut novel, Does Love Always Win? It's a YA sapphic romance, came out in June 2023. And then I have a YA superhero book actually coming out on September 24th. So really soon. I'm very excited.
I'm so excited for you. That's so exciting. How are you
Thank
feeling? Are
you.
you nervous? Are you just super excited? Have the reviews
I
started
think I'm
rolling
more
in?
chill this time. Since it's my second time around, I'm kind of know more what to expect. And I'm just really excited about the story. It's actually set at a Comic Con convention in
Oh,
Philadelphia.
that's so
It's just,
fun.
I was at a Comic Con convention in Philly and was just like, I love this experience so much. I want to write a story about it. And that's how my story blossomed. And it somehow got a superhero in there too. So that was really exciting.
That's so fun. I love it. Well, I'm really excited for this book to be out in the world, and I'm really excited to see what you do next. Do you have any plans for future manuscripts, or did you not start writing a new one yet?
I actually have the first draft of a young adult sapphic murder mystery, and it's actually set in
Ooh,
the fall. I started writing it last fall, so now I'm actually editing it now, which is
okay.
perfect.
That's fun that you've been shifting between genres. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's been different for me. I guess I get I feel like it's things are stale when I keep writing the same thing, so I just always like want to write something new.
I've been really writing a lot for anthologies lately, and so I've been bouncing around age categories and genres, and it's been keeping things exciting and fresh for me because I primarily write fantasy and thrillers with like my full length stuff. But I think it's really fun when we can write outside of our main genres too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just started writing the for anthologies as well.
Yay! And you will be in Prom Perfect. I'm so
I know. I'm so
excited.
excited about that to have my story, The Prom Do-Over, in that.
Yeah, loved it. Perfect. So let's shift into our chat about creating a writing ritual. So this is a topic you suggested, so I would love for you to kick us off. Why do you think having a writing ritual is essential as authors?
Yeah, because there's just so many times, speaking from personal experience, I've always loved writing. It's always felt like I wanted to be an author. But just getting the words out was a problem. Just finding time and making the space. People were always asking me like, "Hey, how's your story coming along?" And I was just like, "Oh, I haven't gotten to it yet." And I'd always make up excuses like I was tired when coming home, or in the morning I'm just not awake. It just was like one thing after another. But I finally decided to get serious about it. And I was like, you know what? I just need to schedule it in. Like, I have my day job. Why don't I just schedule this in like it's another job for me? I think that's the best way that I work.
Yeah, I think it's really important how you mentioned treating writing like a job because that's the end goal. We would want to be full-time authors. That's the dream. And so even though we're not at that point, I think it's really important to treat writing as a job and show up to your writing as you would show up to a job. And I think what's really interesting about thinking about a writing ritual is it has many parts. It can be the time of day that you schedule in time to write. But this can also tie into a certain place that you feel inspired to write, or if you have like a certain process to get yourself in the headspace to write. Like for me personally, like before I start writing, when I'm writing manuscripts and books, I always read what I wrote previously before I start writing the next part because that helps me to ground myself back in the story. So that's something that I like to do, but I think it's really cool how we can look at, okay, what time am I writing? Where am I doing my writing? And how can I prep to get myself in that creative headspace to write? And when we are mindful about these things and find what works for us, it's a lot easier to get into the flow of writing versus not having any structure at all. It can be like the procrastination that you were talking about, making the excuses, but when you actually have a process that works for you, it's a lot easier to do that consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like your take on the writing ritual as well. Just like what you usually do to get yourself in the mind space to write. That's really cool.
Yeah, so are there any certain places where you feel inspired to write, like in your house, or do you go to coffee shops? Is that a part of your ritual in any way?
So I love writing outside on my deck and just like looking out into nature. That's like my favorite spot to write. Um, yeah, especially in the fall when I get to see the leaves fall.
Yeah, no, for sure. You and me are the same because I love riding outside and I think it's like the nature. It's like there's the sounds of nature. You got the wind, you got the birds, and like other sounds that are kind of just like in the background. And I've always found nature to be inspiring. And so when I'm writing, even though I'm not like hyper focused on like, oh my God, birds are chirping, it's just like in the background and that's part of the atmosphere. And I think, especially like, writing and getting into these different worlds and immersing ourselves into our characters' heads, like having an atmosphere where we feel inspired and connected in a way, like that can definitely help. And so I'm all for writing outside as well. I love writing on the deck. That was one of the struggles, like during the very hot months. It was too hot to write outside. Like even if I was in the shade, it was miserable. And so now I'm super happy that the fall time is here because it's the perfect weather to sit outside and write. So, do you have any kind of rituals that you do to prep yourself before you sit down to write?
Yeah, so I have like my morning routine. So I write the best in the morning. So I wake up, I exercise. Exercise, I love doing it. Helps like wake me up and just get in the mental headspace. Then I make my breakfast and I eat my breakfast a little bit while I'm kind of like looking over what I'm going to be doing that day, with whether it be writing, editing. I also use this space to do some of my author marketing. Um, and then after I'm done eating my breakfast, that's when I dive into what I have decided to do for the day.
I love that. I love how you said that you tend to write better in the morning. I think for me, it's either like super early or super late at night. I find during the day it's a little harder just because I'm distracted with a lot of other things. And right in the morning, I feel like is when I'm most inspired just because after waking up, like I'm very refreshed and sometimes like if I'm still sleepy and my head's still in that like dream-like state, like not fully awake, not fully conscious yet, it's like a headspace so you can't really recreate at any other time of day. And so I feel like inspiration really flows for me in the morning versus like during the day when I'm dealing with like editing work and trying to answer a million emails and like doing all the things. There's always going to be something that's going to sidetrack you. And so writing first thing in the morning before all the craziness hits is something I try to do as well.
Yeah, for sure. My day job, I'm also a writer. So by the time I'm finished during the day, I'm like, all right, time to decompress. No more writing for the day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the other thing as well is, like you said, like as your job, you are dealing with writing. I'm an editor, and so I'm dealing with
Hmm.
editing manuscripts. And so I think part of the ritual as well is creating that separation, especially if you're
Hmm.
dealing with a job that's similar to what you're doing. For me, especially, I cannot jump straight from writing my story to editing a client's manuscript and the other way around because I'm like fully immersed in whatever story I was working on. And also, it's a very different mindset when I'm writing a draft that's a different skill set and a different perspective than when I'm editing, especially somebody else's work. And for your job, I'm guessing it's not creative writing based, is it?
No, it's not. It's actually like medical writing. I
Oh,
do fundraising
wow.
too.
Yeah,
I
so that's
tell
so different.
donors, I thank donors how we spent their money. So it's like I write them reports on that.
Okay, yeah. So, like, that's totally different, like, writing that way versus writing your novels. There has to be some kind of separation, or else things will not flow as well if you're still in the space you were while writing that other kind of work.
Yeah, and I work from home too, so I'm still like at the same desk too in the
Yeah, oh, yeah,
morning.
me too. Yeah, yeah, I think okay, so that as well, like, sometimes changing up the location can help as well, like, we both like to write outside on the deck, but especially, like, during the winter time when you can't do that, or in the summer when it's, like, 50,000 degrees outside and you can't do it, we do need to shift our locations from time to time, because you're right, like, sitting at the desk all day, like, even though like you could have like separation between, you can go like have lunch, you can go exercise, but returning to that same spot could kill the inspiration sometimes. So moving to a different spot in your house, when I'm sleepy at night and I'm writing before bed, like I'll literally write in my bed, which is terrible for my posture, but I do it anyway. I'll write on the couch. During winter time, I love to sit on the couch by the
Mhm.
fireplace and write. And so just shifting our locations can help as well. Maybe like I'm personally someone who cannot focus when there's noise, but sometimes like just for someone who likes to go out and about to write, like if you've been in your house writing for a while, maybe go to like a coffee shop or something, even though that's not my thing, but for some that can definitely help.
Yeah, definitely. Or like your local library. There's some
Oh yeah.
places you can reserve a study room. At my library has that, and I've done that a couple times, and it's been really nice to get out and do something different.
Yeah. So are you someone who needs silence while you write, or can you deal with like noise?
It's funny you say that. So before I worked from home, I used to commute into work every day via train. And so that's when I would do my writing was on the train. So at that point I would have music playing because I tried to drown out all of the people. But now that I'm working at home, I do need silence. It helps a lot more.
That's so funny. So there are authors that I've seen like tweet like, "Oh, like what kind of music do you guys like to listen to while you write?" And I'm like, "You guys listen to music?" I think
I've seen that too.
I think my issue like personally is because I'm a songwriter, my brain is wired very
Mm,
differently listening to music. And so instead of it being background noise, I'll be like, "Oh my god, such a good lyric," or "Oh my gosh, like what a great chord change," or like the production is so good. Like it would just be a distraction for me, so I would need, like, total silence. If anything, maybe, like, instrumental music, like piano music,
yes.
but even that too, like, I feel like because my brain is wired for music, it's not really, like, an escape or this background noise thing for me, it's I focus on it when I hear it.
I actually am similar there too because I'm a musician. I play the piano and the French horn.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so I did used to use classical music when I was commuting, but, like, I would sometimes get sucked into it and start listening to it and be like, "Oh, I remember playing this," and
Yeah.
then, I need to get back to writing.
Yeah. Yeah, so real quick on the music thing, which kind of ties into the ritual. So some authors love to do other fun things to get in the mood of their story, like creating playlists or creating mood boards. I have never created a playlist, which is again very weird because I'm literally a songwriter and you think I would have like a long list of songs I've listened to that remind me of my story, but for some reason I've always struggled with that. But like creating mood boards, people have commissioned like character art and made playlists to get into the flow of a new story. And I think that's really fun when authors do that.
Yeah, I made a playlist for my first book, Does Love Always Win? That was a lot easier to I think because it's like a romance. There was a lot a lot of songs that I could pick from for that, but Superficial I have not tried yet. Maybe sometime in the future as like a marketing thing. But yeah, it's always fun to see authors do that kind of thing. But I do like the mood boards. I have done that for both my books.
Yeah, those are really fun, especially during pitch events and seeing all those. I think it's really cool. Yeah, for sure. So at times when you have your ritual and you do it consistently, but we all know that life happens and can throw us off from time to time. So on days where life interferes and you can't follow your writing ritual as you usually do, how do you deal with that?
I used to kind of be harder on myself and be like, "Oh, man, I'm when am I ever gonna finish this story?" But now I feel like with more experience, I'm just like I give myself grace. Life happens. It's okay. You'll get back to it. It'll call you back when you need to or when things in your life aren't so disruptive. Uh, and I'm actually in that spot right now. My son is homesick, so I'm not able to actually like do things in the morning as much as I wanted to, but I know that it's only for a short time period that I'll be able to return probably by next week.
Yeah, I love what you said there about it being temporary. I think sometimes, like, I'm someone who, if things get thrown off drastically, it really messes with me. But I do need to remember that it's a temporary thing and life does happen. And we do need to give ourselves more grace as authors in general. I think we can be very hard on ourselves. And especially like someone like me who I set myself personal deadlines because I write better to deadlines, and I usually give myself very hard deadlines. And that's just how I've always worked. Like as a student in school, like I would always work better to deadlines. But there have been times where like if I wasn't feeling well or like just things came up that were out of my control and I missed a personal deadline, I'd be like super hard on myself. Or if I had a whole plan, like, okay, I'm gonna write this brand new short story this weekend and then a bunch of stuff comes up on the weekend and I didn't write it, I can be like so hard on myself. Like I let myself down, I let my writing down. And it's hard to have those thoughts, but we all have them. But I think reminding ourselves that others are going through this too and no one's perfect and life isn't perfect and you'll always have a chance to pick it up the next day or the next week or whatever feel like getting back at it again. So I agree about not being so hard on ourselves even though that it's easier said than done.
Yeah, and I also find that it's really helpful talking to some of my other writing friends when I'm having these issues just rise up, just like sending them a message, be like, "Oh, I can't write today," and then just getting their support. It's been really, really nice because everyone's been there. So it's nice to have that affirmation.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think just the support in the writing community is great because it's a constant reminder that we're all in the same boat and we all go through the same things, whether that be not being able to write a day or dealing with rejection or going crazy waiting for query responses or responses on submission or whatever. And I think as long as we kind of lean on each other for that support, it helps because we are reminded that we're not alone. So, for any authors listening who just do not have any kind of structure whatsoever with their writing and they would love to have more of a writing ritual to help them make progress on their manuscripts, what advice would you give them?
I'd say just to see what works the best for them and also try to kind of see what their goal is and like if they do want to start writing more, like think about like if a writing ritual might be helpful for them, but if it just they can't do it, it's just trying to carve out time here and there, even just like 10 minutes like somewhere. If you're like on the go in your car or waiting to pick up your kid, just pull out your phone and like jot down a few notes and see what happens.
Yeah, and I love what you said about discovering what works best. I think writing is something that's very individualistic. And so, what works for me might not work for you, and what
Hmm.
works for you might not work for somebody else. And so, if someone listening doesn't have any kind of structure, you can try different things. And if something works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's totally fine. I think sometimes as authors as well, we can see all the things on social media and see people say like, oh, I wrote 1,000 words in a 15-minute sprint or like whatever. Like there's a lot of things getting thrown around and it can be easy to compare your process to somebody else's process, but the truth is like we all have our own preferences, we're all unique and we all need to write the best way for us. And so trying different things and seeing what works is the best way. And if you see someone that you're friends with doing something that doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's just that's not a suitable process for you. And so trying out things until you find what works is definitely something I did. Because before, like when I was writing my first few manuscripts, I didn't do that thing where I read what I wrote previously. I would just jump into the next chapter. And then I was dealing with like voice issues and like inconsistencies with the story, and I just felt like I was floundering and couldn't grasp onto anything. And so reading what I wrote previously helped ground me. I'm also a plotter now, even for short stories. I will give myself an outline for a short story before I write it, so I have more direction when I'm writing. Some people are like anti-plotting, and shout out to you, because it's a whole different process, and if you're a pantser, fabulous, you know? So trying different things and finding what works for you is definitely the way to go.
Well, it's funny you say that because I used to be a pantser, and then I started writing the young adult sapphic murder mystery, and I was like, "Wait, I don't think I can just pants this."
Yeah,
So I started plotting, and I was like, "Wow, this actually is really helpful." So I might have
yeah,
to do both of those for my next book.
yeah. No, for sure. It's so funny though because there are authors. Especially, like, so I would say, like, mystery and thriller, I personally could not go into a mystery and thriller without knowing, like, who the killer is or, like, what's going on, like, who the
Right,
suspects
right.
are, what the red herrings are, what the motives are. I could not. But there are authors who, like, totally pants mysteries and thrillers where they don't even know going into it who the killer is. And that would be, like, low-key super fun. But for me, I'd be like, I don't know how to write this story.
Well, that's what happened to me is, like, since I was normally, like, a pantser, I had this idea in my head, just the opening scene, right? So I, quickly typed that out, and then suddenly someone died, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I guess this is a murder mystery."
That's so funny. That's so funny. So, before we wrap up our chat, what are some final thoughts you have to share on creating a writing ritual?
I like what we really talked about before about finding what works for you, because a writing ritual, like you said, doesn't always have to be the time of day. It could be what you're doing beforehand, even having like a specific beverage with you, like just something that gets you kind of in the mindset of, okay, I'm here to do my job as a writer and do some writing.
Perfect. And that has been a fabulous chat with you all about creating a writing ritual. I love chatting with you about this. And this brings us to the plot twist where I get to ask you a fun question you could have never seen coming. Are you ready?
I am.
This is a fun one, and because Halloween is approaching, it's a witchy one. This is going to be fun. So here's your question. If you could create a potion that gave you a writing related power, what three ingredients would you put into the potion and what would the power be?
Ooh. I would put in coffee. Candy, and, ooh, what's something else that's fun? Uh, I'd say I would, like, grind up like, my favorite book and put it in there too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, so I get the writing part, and then it would allow me to do all of the editing that I don't like to do. 'Cause I love the writing the first draft, that's my favorite thing ever, but the editing is not my favorite.
We're opposite. I could edit all day. Let's make this potion and give it to all of the authors who hate editing.
There we go.
Awesome. Well, it was a delight having you on the show. Can you please share with everybody where they can find you online and check out your books?
Yeah, so my website is dianebillas.com, and then on Threads and Instagram, I'm at Diane Billas Writes, and then on Twitter and TikTok and Facebook, I'm at Diane Billas. And my books can be found most places like Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, bookshop.org, and a lot of indie places have it available online as well.
That is fabulous. Well, good luck on your release coming up very, very soon. I wish you all the best, and it was a total delight having you on the show.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. I had so much fun.
Yes, this has been so much fun. It was a joy having you. And listeners, that is a wrap on this chat with Diane all about creating a writing ritual. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider leaving Literary Blend a review and giving it 5 stars to help others just like you discover it. Also, if you have friends in publishing you think would enjoy the show, please pass it along to them. Thank you for listening, and until we flip to the next chapter, happy reading and writing.